link with you when we are done, or share with those who are not able to join for one reason or the other. So I'm going to share my screen just to help us to navigate the conversation. I doubt that I'll say anything extremely new, but it's always a good time for us to touch base, yeah? So the conversation today, and as I speak through these slides, feel free to write your questions on the chat box or your reflections, experience in the chat box. You can write it to everyone, or you can send me a private message and I would be able to have a look. So we really just want to look at how do we make care visible? How do we make it tangible? And that we are able to actually measure it so that it stops depending on specific people in your facilities. Oh, Irene is not here today, so XYZ can't happen. Or, you know, your patients are always asking, when is so-and-so coming so that I can come to the clinic? When you start hearing that, then you know for sure that care is dependent on people and not on a system that you have set up. So this whole session is literally going to help us to start understanding, one, are we people dependent or are we system dependent? And even if we are people dependent currently, how do we start moving towards having a system driven kind of care delivery system? So what does healthcare look like today in this context of trying to put a pulse on or a heartbeat on the care in your facility? If someone said today, Alice, rate the care in your facility, the scale is 1 to 5, would you be able to put a finger on it? And if you picked 5, what would you say you looked at to be able to measure it? So currently, healthcare looks like a lot of firefighting, not because we want to firefight, especially as leaders here, but purely because there's just a lot of things that are happening. Most of us here struggle with shortage of staff. So every single day you arrive, someone has resigned, someone new is coming, something is just happening, and you find that your nice list, to-do list that you make on Sunday night, it just goes away. You even forget to take tea or even go to the bathroom. When your patient experience depends on who's on duty, when you hear staff saying, today we have a good quorum, it's XYZ on duty, things will go well. Today, we are surviving. Irene is on duty. No, we are surviving. Then you have staff who are exhausted, and especially if you're a leader, you are stretched thin because you're trying to juggle so many balls. If you have a new staff, you're trying to remember to orientate them, but then you're also thinking, if I spend time orienting them, isn't it easier for me to just do this thing? So you end up doing that thing, and this person does not get orientation, so they take a shortcut, which gets back to you. You still have your leadership role that you need to carry out. You have a zillion meetings to go to, especially if you're going through an accreditation journey, and your whole day is literally booked from back to back with no space at all for you to actually even sit down and look at what is the actual care of the patients in my department, in my hospital, wherever it is you head. Then growth has increased complexity and not clarity. The more you grow, if you grow in numbers, if you grow in size, however your facility is scaling, the sooner you start growing, it becomes complex. And if there's no clarity or structure that was put, then everything just becomes firefighting. So if you have to be there, this is just a reflection you have to, think about. If you have to be there for things to work, you don't have a system, you are actually the system. Yes? And look at it this way. It may be you as the leader. It may also be core staff. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I actually made a video. I think I posted it on Instagram and something, just about if the services in your facility, some of them or all of them, depend on key people. And when they're not there, you find errors, you find complaints and all that. then it generally means that your facility and your care delivery system is people dependent. It doesn't really depend on a system. One thing I need to make clear here, every time I say the word system, someone says, oh, but you see, we have a HMIS. We are not talking about your IT technology here. So if you're seated here thinking, but you have a system, we are automated, that's not what I'm talking about. In fact, look at it this way. Whatever it is that's running physically in your facility is what is uploaded in your system, your IT system. So if there's a lot of chaos happening on the ground, that's exactly what will be uploaded in your IT system. Remember, the IT system doesn't just get data by itself. Someone uploads that data. So whoever uploads it had better have clarity about what to upload. So for the purpose of this class, our system is not the IT system you have. Our system is the way you do things. Our system is the processes. Let me call them the processes in your facility. The processes that have to work together so that care is delivered in the smoothest way possible. And after we deliver that care, then we take that information and then we upload it into your HMIS. So every time I say system, please don't think, we have a HMIS, we are fine. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the processes, all these things put together form the system of care in your facility. So I was actually making this one and then I was like, yeah, this makes sense to me anyway. If you were to get an impact report in your facility today, and you are looking back, 2025, we're in November, so it's time to sit back and say, let's look back. How was it? Would you be able to create an impact report? And an impact report goes beyond the finances. I know, especially in healthcare, we are very good at, we made this much, we had this many patients, and all those very financially heavy metrics. When we start looking on this other end of the work we actually do, assuming you don't change anything at all after this class, or assuming you've been firefighting the whole year, this is what your impact report would look like. And I would love to invite you to start thinking in terms of what would the real numbers look like. So for example, if you are firefighting most of the time in your facility, firefighting means that you're not doing your core work, especially if you're a leader here, that you're not, and I hope your facility as leaders, you have work plans, that you're not able to keep up with your work plan that aligns with the facility strategy to push it forward because you're constantly solving problems everywhere. So if you're constantly solving problems, you're probably losing about 10 hours in a week, because that's like 2 hours every day. So 10 hours in a week, which is about 40 hours in a month. So start thinking about how many days that is, then times 12 in a year. So this is a leader who has lost all that in firefighting. I normally offer mentoring classes to nurse managers. And I remember there's one who said, sometimes she sits down, she's been up and down the whole day, but she can't account for her day. Why? Firefighting. So if you're a leader here, it's a good time to start thinking, how many hours have you actually lost? And what does that translate to in terms of days? And what would that have done if you were focusing on the facility strategy? Let's look at patient attrition rates. Attrition meaning the number of patients we have lost. And the best way to think about the number of patients you have lost, this says 30% plus. So again, we're assuming that you actually know the number of patients you have lost this year, not lost to death, lost as in, I am never going back there for one thing or the other. If we are in this meeting as leaders and we can't put a finger on the number of patients we've lost, even if, forget the year then, we are now at the end of October. If at the end of this month, we are not able to say, this is the number of patients we have lost, then something is not right. So when we are constantly firefighting, we cannot even sit down to start determining this. But from a lot of data and research, patient attrition will happen anyway, but it's supposed to be 10%. When you are in this state we are talking about, you may have more than 30% and you would never know. So you'd constantly be running around looking for new patients. We are constantly marketing, campaigns, all that. But when they come, do they complete their treatment plans? Do they ever come back? Maybe it's the maternity ones, ANC. They come once, twice, they disappear, you never see them again, and you never really get to know. Then let's look at inefficiencies. Inefficiencies because how Irene does one thing is not how Caroline does that thing. For example, theater. Let's take theater as a good example. We have our surgeons coming in, we have our theater team. Every surgeon, quote unquote, has a way they want to do things, yes? So a very good test is always to look at surgeon A and surgeon B. What is the cost of the surgery they are doing? If there's variation and it's very big, it means that that's an inefficiency because there's no standardized way of doing things. Now, if you're in outpatient, then it's as simple as the doctors who sit in your facilities. If they're treating, say, malaria, how is this person doing it and how is that person doing it? And what does that mean in terms of quality of care for your patient, which would lead to attrition, and cost of care for you, especially if everyone is doing it the way they want to do it. So that would lead to this. This is your impact report, assuming we're looking at it from how much have we lost this year. I'm not saying you've lost anything, but allow me to help you to look at it from that angle. Then let's talk about staff turnover. The more staff you lose, the more your staffing cost is, because you're not just replacing them, you're losing time in finding the right person. When they come, you have to onboard them. The person who left, maybe they had benefits you had to pay and all that. So you end up having a lot of money spent in staffing costs. So these are the 4 metrics I would love for you to look at that make your system, that are as a result of a reactive system. And a reactive system is a system that's dependent on people. This is the result of it. So it's nice that you're having this session. It's November. It's time to look back through the year and just say, what would your impact report look like? That's why I put here your hospital. If you don't take anything from this class, I would love for you to go and create something like this, an impact report for your department, for your hospital, for your whatever it is you work. Try coming up with this and just see, what would these 4 metrics look like? Leadership hours, patient loyalty or attrition, inefficiencies due to high operational costs, and the impact of staff turnover. Then it's so easy and also not the easiest thing, depending on where you're looking at it, to move from a reactive system to a predictable system. A reactive system is what we have been discussing so far. It's dependent on people. It's dependent on the person who is on duty. It's dependent on you as the leader. When you go off, when you go for a conference, when you go on leave, phone calls left, right, and center. In fact, sometimes you even go on flight mode so they can survive without you. Reactive systems are they're draining emotionally. And that's why currently we have so much, and I don't know whether it's the same in all counties or countries, since we have other people joining us from different countries. Our staff are burnt out. They're not burnt out because of the issues of I'm an empath and I'm carrying the whole world in my heart. No, they're burnt out because they have become the system. Yes, you're very, the staff you have who are the best. When they are at work, you say, hey, today I can even afford to drink tea because Irene is on duty. We have drained them emotionally because they have become the system. Many facilities have core staff who, when they say we are resigning, someone wants to have a conversation with them. And the reason they want to leave is not really because they don't like the facility or anything. It's literally because they are the system and it's tiring. It could even be you and not even the other person. If you are the system, it's emotionally draining. Sorting out all kinds of issues every single day. And then on top of that, someone is still going to come to you with a performance management something to say, Irene, you did not meet your KPIs. Or you will call that other staff and say, you have not met the KPIs. Then the other thing is unclear standards. Do we have SOPs? And before you say yes, if they sit in a file somewhere and they are not activated meaning there's a checklist somewhere, there is a schedule somewhere, there is a job aid, there is a SOPs in a file are just SOPs in a file. Those don't count as clear standards. So let's not say we have SOPs if they are not active, because if they are not active, then they are not really supporting the people to do their work. So reactive systems have all these symptoms. A predictable system is human-centered. Human-centered meaning that despite all the complexities that come with healthcare service delivery, that we do hold space for our staff. Yes, we hold space for our staff well-being. We hold space for reflective practice. We hold space for hurdles. We hold space for a healthcare employee assistance program. That's human-centered, and that's really just for the staff. When it's patient-related, then we say that our patient experience is actually personalized, and it's not one size fits all. For example, if you have, let's say, okay, let's look at outpatient again. And in outpatient, sometimes we see patients who are diabetic, and we offer them the same care across board. Then it's not human-centered, it's not patient-centered, it's centered on our way of doing things. It's centered on the person who is on duty. Why do I say that? Here's something you need to put. So in my sessions, I love having something called the parking lot. Here's a parking lot for you. Thing number one on your parking lot, please go and read about patient activation levels. The level to which our patient is activated in terms of healthcare literacy should determine the kind of care we give them. Unfortunately, even when we give patient education, we rarely think about how activated are they. So patient activation goes from 1 to 4, or is it 5? 4. And 1 is this person purely has given out their power in terms of healthcare literacy and healthcare decisions. They are literally depending on you to navigate whatever the situation is for them. 4, is it 4 or 5? That person is healthcare literate. So it's very easy to help them to start their treatment and to continue with their treatment and to remain compliant. So make sure that your systems are human-centered and not centered on how we do things, and even more scary, centered on who is on duty that day. Then a predictable system is systems-driven, so we don't have people who we are heavily depending on. There's a system that supports everybody. And a system, again, means 1, there's an SOP that guides how we do work, and everybody has access to that SOP, and it's been activated. Again, activation means that the SOP is not a bunch of papers. It's either been integrated into your HMIS if it's part of documentation, and therefore it guides how documentation happens. It's a job aid that starts somewhere so someone can look at it. It is a checklist that informs the care they give. If you are like many of these other fancy healthcare facilities out here, there's even AI that is supporting clinical decision making. If you're in that level, that's fine. If you're not, then you should have an SOP that does that. Number two, people should have been trained on this SOP. Turnover is very high. So people are coming and going. Those who came and were trained, we can't say that the one who arrived today was trained. You have to make sure that gets done. Then the third thing is there must be a way that we measure our use of SOPs and confirm that they are actually active within our departments. And then finally, every system must have an owner. Every SOP must have an owner. An owner meaning this is the person who is championing this process in our department. This is the person, because if we don't have that, then it gets a little bit tricky, especially if you're here and you're a quality manager, you're a nurse manager, you are even a facility, you're a math or a nursing services manager. You cannot keep track of all the processes or SOPs. The more you distribute them and make people owners and show them how to track, the easier your work becomes. So what we are saying is, most of us are here and we are really trying to get here. When you get here, then it becomes a little bit easier now for the patients to feel seen, heard, and understood. I've actually attended, I think it was a breakfast meeting 2 years ago, where it was interesting. So there were healthcare professionals and then patients were invited. And the patients said they normally feel like luggage on a conveyor belt, especially in the outpatient. And even more interesting, when ticket numbers are being called and yours has been called as a ticket number. So just, trying to move away from so many, and I know IT is amazing and technology is beautiful and it's really making our work easier, but it's also making things a little bit mechanical. So the more we can step back and see, how do we merge clinical excellence with a little bit of humanity to just find the right balance? Now, for us to have tangible care, these are the 3 things you need to be able to have in your facility for you to say our care is tangible. We can now say confidently that we provide care that can be felt. And it's not dependent on Irene on duty or Fanny on duty or whoever else. 1, you must have standards of care. And this is what most facilities normally have. We have SOPs, guidelines from government or from wherever we downloaded them from. Please don't download SOPs and then forget to remove the title. NHS, the UK. Do not do that. After you download them, please adapt them to your facility, then put them in the folder. But we've also said if they are living in the folder, they are not really helpful. So 1, you have standards of care that govern how care is delivered. Clinical excellence. 2, culture of care. Okay, so this is actually interchanged. How teams treat each other behind the scenes, that's culture of care. And then how people feel when they deliver and receive that care, that's experience of care. Culture of care is currently the biggest issue we have here in healthcare because we don't trust each other. We are groups of people working together. We are not really teams. Best way to know whether you are a team is to ask, do we have a shared goal? And it's not that strategic goal that was made by the board of directors way up there. No, in your department. What are you working on? Does everybody know? How do we touch base? How do we hold each other accountable? How do we provide clarity? How do we solve conflicts? How do we make decisions? Those are the things that inform the culture of care in your facility. So if you have standards of care and you have a culture, then you can most likely say the experience of care would be perfect. If you have this, especially right now, because in Africa, everybody is now chasing accreditation. If you have this is accreditation, and you lack this, the culture is toxic, as people say, you will never get here. And this does not mean you get here directly. This and this get you here. So these are the three things you need to be able to say, our care can be seen, can be felt, and that everybody can be able to say, yeah. When you go there, you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel understood. These three things, okay? Then let me introduce to you a framework that has been working for us that we think you should consider when you're thinking about how do we move from reactive systems to predictive systems? How do we make our care tangible? So first system you must have is a system that provides clarity. A system that is able to define what does great care look like. Put it in the chat box. Let me know. What does great care look like in your facility? As you write it down, or write it down in your piece of paper. Don't even put it in the chat box. Write it in your piece of paper. What does great care look like in my facility? After you write it down, tomorrow, go and ask 5 people. 5, I'm not saying many, just 5. Pick 5, random. Ask them, what does great care look like in our facility? What does great care look like in our department? If they respond the way you responded, then you have a team, you have a shared goal, you are okay. If they respond differently from you, or if you're currently stuck thinking, what does it even mean, by the way? Then you don't have a clarity system in your facility. First, define what does great care look like. At hospital level, please leave the big words, our vision, our values, not those things. What does quality mean in your facility, in your language? Forget IHI, forget who else? PDSA, forget all those fancy quality words you have seen, you can Google, these must be words that everybody lives by. What does great care look like? Then number 2, do we have SOPs that govern how care is delivered? When you look at SOPs, think about standards of care, which we most likely always have. We lack SOPs, however, about teamwork, communication, conflict resolution, decision-making, what else? Bullying, those kinds of things. Do we have them? So when you think about SOPs, go back to tangible care and think, these are the 3 pillars: standards of care, culture of care, experience of care. Do we have SOPs along the 3 areas? If your SOPs are leaning towards standards of care only, now you know where to add the others. Then on top of that, do we have a structured onboarding process? Or is it dependent on who is on duty? Or is it dependent on HR? And HR will say, this is your desk, this is your department, I'm now handing over to unit manager. The unit manager says, today I have so many meetings. Who is the shift leader? Shift leader, come. Please, this is our new staff, onboard them. Then shift leader says, for now we are kind of busy, let me pair you with somebody, and that's how you are onboarded. If that's how you onboard people, you do not have clarity systems. Then let your roles be clear. In fact, today I told somebody, role clarity is actually an act of compassion. Role clarity makes or breaks the experience of your staff. We work in a facility, the shortage of staff, I understand. But please be very clear about what is Irene's role. There's Irene's primary role, there's Irene's secondary role, there's Irene's tertiary role. Please make sure that it is clear, together with what are the metrics for performance management, so that when we get to that table and you're complaining about how I'm not performing, you can say with confidence that during onboarding, my role was made clear. We are struggling with clarity of roles, purely because we keep adding roles on top of others for people. You have a staff who is taking care of patients, but they're also the manager. They were employed as a staff, let's say nurse, primary nurse. Now they're running a department. They don't have a job description about their manager role. You did not train them about how to be a manager, but yet we expect for them to perform. That is lack of compassion for that person. So clarity is about that. Then A, remember we're looking at the care systems framework. So C is clarity systems. So you need to have systems that provide clarity. Then you need to have systems that align people so that everyone is moving in the same direction. Do we have hurdles? And a hurdle is not that morning handover meeting. That is very necessary. That is very patient-centered. A hurdle is now about staff. What are the recurring issues? Do we have, are people beefing each other? Are we on the same page? Are we working towards the same goal? Shared metrics would mean that we actually understand that we have a goal and that we are working towards shared metrics. Leadership rhythms is literally about our leaders and managers having a way in which they do their work and that it's predictable. Every time you guys go for that, your emergency leadership meeting, and it's almost every day, you cause anxiety. Then you come back and you don't say anything, you cause even more anxiety. Then suddenly, people are not working, they're really having grapevines, corridor talk, gossip, speculation. That is caused by unpredictable leadership rhythms. The way we say, oh, my door is open, oh, we work as a team, until when it's time for accountability, and then everybody on their own. Until when it's time for someone to see you, they need to make appointments to see you. So alignment is what makes us work from the same page and move in the same direction. So this is also a good time for you as a healthcare leader to ask, questions like, am I clear about the vision? Am I clear about the strategy? Is my team clear about that? Do they know what our values are? Do we live through our values every day? Because if we don't have that, we cannot say we are aligned. And when there's no alignment, we can't say teamwork. That's how we say we're a group of people working together, not a team. Then we look at reinforcement systems. So these reinforcement systems, they help you to sustain excellence, yeah? And they are very predictable. They are not, things that are just happening and everybody's wondering, oh, what is that? Rhythm. Rhythm is so important. You as a human being, forget even working in a hospital. As a human being, we all like predictability. We all have fear of the unknown. But now we come to our facilities, even an audit is not predictable. 1 minute it's being done, the next minute it's like it's not being done because, oh, the person who does it has gone on leave. And so it just causes a lot of anxiety. So reinforcement comes through audits. So audits are good because they help you to know where are the gaps and what are the real issues that are causing this gap. So I'd say define the audits and make them known. They're not, there shouldn't be secrets. Yeah, let people know these audits are carried out. This is how they are carried out. This is how we, quantify them. Look, even ask them to do them with you, for them to see, to be able to see through your eyes how these audits are done. Please make space for reflections, especially in this world now where we have a lot of people with Mental health issues. We've seen a lot of healthcare professionals who are committing suicide. We've seen a lot of patients and their families who are violent towards us, but we never really debrief. We never sit down and say, what did that mean to you? I once held a compassionate round. A compassionate round is really just the way people go around to see patients. This is just a round for staff. We sit down and discuss, care that made me feel amazing and care that made me feel like I want to pack my bags and leave healthcare. And one of the stories I'll never forget is of a cleaner who had to clean a labor ward after a lady who had PPH, they bled out. And, after everybody's done, the cleaner had to go in and clean. And to him, it was a guy, and he said, nobody even knew that the previous week he had lost a child as well. Yeah. And he had to go clean, and he had to look at all this blood and still have to imagine what he had lost and what this lady could be going through and all that. I didn't have to be there to hold that space, but when I held the space, he did speak about what that meant. And it's at that point someone explained to him that when PPH happens, XYZ happens, and it means ABC. And after that, he became confident in even attending to the pregnant women. Hold space for reflections. It's the end of the year. Have a compassionate round. And it doesn't have to be hospital level. Do it at department level then. And say, guys, which is that care you gave this year that made you feel like a champion? And which is that care this year that made you feel powerless? Let's talk about it, yeah? And then let's have recognition, more recognition. Please give it a rhythm. Let's not, be recognizing people based on management has decided that Irene is the best nurse. Please give a predictable way of recognition so that this actually sees the day. The biggest bit I want to really mention is this part. We are all struggling in healthcare because of the lack of accountability. When people use SOPs or not, we don't have consequences. We are very happy to recognize people for their effort, but we struggle a lot with putting boundaries and drawing the line and being able to say, this is the consequence of not doing ABCD. Of course, people will be punished, some people will be fired, some people, depending on whatever. But by that point, the staff have lost trust. And when they lose trust, we can't have alignment. So think about your accountability systems. What is the repercussion anyway? Okay, good and bad. What's the consequence? Not repercussion. What's the consequence of being compliant with standards and everything? Yeah? And then what's the consequence of not doing that? And is it clear? So that would form your reinforcement systems. Then experience of care. We need to humanize care delivery for patients and staff. There's a lot of effort currently that has been going towards patient experience. Some facilities are now waking up to staff experience and being able to say we value our staff, we value their well-being, we value their mental health, and that we actually hold space for all that. To have these experience systems, it means we have feedback loops. So a feedback loop includes performance management. Please, please, please let this performance management be as a result of a role that was clear. Please, let it not be as a result of a role that was not clear. Yeah, we said role clarity is an act of compassion. Then, well-being checks. I've seen quite a number of staff who come, so on Tuesdays, today's Tuesday, Tuesdays I hold a space, I call it safe space. And I see, it's a clinic. I see staff and I see patients, and all of them come with something common. They have a condition they are dealing with, and they don't really know how to navigate it. Yes, even healthcare professionals. And for healthcare professionals, the biggest challenge is always, I don't trust my facility enough for me to tell them what I'm going through. So I'm coming to work, I probably have a chronic back problem, but I don't trust enough to say it because I might get fired and it's the only job I have. So I continue to work, but my experience is very bad. As a result, I may be wincing in pain, but the patient feels like I'm sneering at them. So what are the well-being checks in your facility? Do we have them? And if we do your staff feel safe enough to actually access this? Including the issues of mental health. Most facilities that are going through the well-being programs are actually outsourcing mental health services and all that, just to be able to hold some level of confidentiality. Then, of course, celebration routines. This one I know we kind of do because I know we do birthdays and all that. If you don't do birthdays, please start doing them. Celebrate people. This is life. Like, this is our life experience now. There is no, I am going to retire and then enjoy life. No, no, no. It's happening now. And every time we are in the hospital, it is happening. In fact, I dare to say, where we work is our sitting room. Our houses is our bedroom. We are literally like people in boarding school. You're in class the whole day, you go to sleep. Same thing with our work. The whole day we are at work. In the evening, we go to sleep. We might as well make it a good experience. So the care systems framework is what we've talked about. Clarity, very important. In fact, if you don't do all these things, please do this one. When this is okay, these others align very well. When this is not okay, then there's a problem. Oh, there's a typo here. Sorry about that. Humanize healthcare for your staff. I think I've talked about it. I've talked about acts of compassion. Giving feedback is actually an act of compassion. Don't just wait for the performance review to give me feedback that you've had since January, for heaven's sake. Let's have these systems. The more predictive they are, I hope you caught that part. Surprise, surprise, surprise business is not useful for when we are trying to humanize systems. Predictability is key. Rhythm is key. So even as you talk about culture, rituals, feedback systems, please let them be predictable to some extent. I know there are some that will happen, but I also know that there are facilities, because we are firefighting every day, we are constantly having emergency meetings. When we humanize care for staff, of course, then automatically it becomes an added value to our patients. The most sustainable system is the one that cares for its caregivers. So the question I have for you is, to what extent is your system caring for their caregivers? Does it even recognize them? The care system we spoke about. To what extent has it actually offered care to our caregivers? Their compassion, they have fatigue in their compassion, not really because they don't have empathy, but because we don't have support systems. So when we create this, then compassion becomes structured. It's not dependent on one person. Please, please, please look out on your your very good staff. Those staff for, hey, when Irene is on duty, everything is okay. That is the staff who is having compassion fatigue, because they're tired of being the system. We need to create a system so that they can relax. Lessons we've learned so far, implementing that care framework through our near care system, is facilities that we've worked with, clients that we've worked with, when we meet them, in fact, when they come to us, their biggest issue is always, oh, they're dropping the ball, oh, there's no morale, people are just doing things the way they want to do. If you're a leader, oh, I'm tired of carrying all these balls, I wish I would put some of them down because you're tired of being the system. There's chaos, there's fatigue, there's inconsistency left, right, and center. There's a very high turnover, and you're most likely already losing revenue. whether you know it or not. See, we've talked about hidden loss. So you might have lost revenue you don't even know about until you go and do that exercise I told you. After we start going through the care system, especially the clarity bits, once people are clear about their role and they have SOPs, and then you give them the resources they need, a lot of things turn around. One of the biggest things is operational efficiency, because at the end of the day now, you have a standardized way in which people do things. And whether you have lowcomers in terms of doctors or nurses, that you've taken your time to onboard them, and they know how things are done in your facility. So that means you're not having last minute people you're calling to come and save the day. They must have gone through an onboarding in your onboarding process, some orientation classes so that they know how you do things. Once there are systems and there are ways people communicate, we are seeing a lot of staff retention. In fact, there's a facility we've been working with for the last 3+ years. And by the time we joined them, they had such a high turnover. And in the last 2 years, I think it's only one person who has left. And even they were going back to school. And they still come back occasionally in the weekends to work. Would you say the same for your facility? When people leave, do they ever come back for locum or anything? Or they say, this is my 2 feet. If I ever step there again, call me crazy. So when you have the care system, when it's running very well, you're going to have this. Staff retention means less training needs for you, because all you're doing is refreshers, less supervision so that you can focus on leadership, less toxicity because people know each other, they've gone through the whole team cycle. You know the team cycle, forming, storming, norming, then performing. If you consistently have a high turnover, your teams are consistently forming. And when they are consistently forming, it means micromanagement from you, because you have to supervise. And that's not what you want. And if they go far enough, they are storming. That is why there's all this conflict in the facilities. So you want your teams to be at norming or performing. For that to happen, you have to be here. Yeah? Then increase patient trust, of course. This one is important because your attrition rate is directly related to this. The more they trust you, the more they stay. The more they lose trust, the more they leave. And when they stay, these two are related. Yeah, the more patients you have, the more you're dealing with claims and all that. When you have operational efficiency, your claims management becomes easier. Every facility, we've actually streamlined our claims management process. They report that they have less rejections. They report that they have better documentation from staff, and that makes their work really, really easy. My favorite in all this is this: leaders who are now able to step away from, the nitty-gritties, that you're now able to say, I want to develop a nursing excellence center, and that you have 10 hours in a week that you can actually develop that because you're not firefighting. Leaders who are able to say, now I have time to sit down and develop a strategy for the next 5 years. Those are leaders who've gotten their 10 hours back per week, 40 hours in a month times 12. Now, and by we, I mean near quality care, we are embarking on a journey. We are trying to humanize healthcare. We're trying to make our healthcare spaces places we actually look forward to going to. Not when it gets to Monday, we're having anxiety. When it's time to go on duty, you're wondering who you can call to take your shift. We don't want that. This is life. We are doing life now. We want our experience to be better. And for that reason, we thought of the wall of care, that we want to work with facilities, partner with facilities that are keen on improving the patient experience and the staff experience using systems, and that we are all going to form this wall of care. And every quarter or something, we will do a pulse check, check our heartbeat, and that we're able to put it on the map of Africa and say, you know, our heart is beating very well, and that we're able to celebrate it with people out here and say, in our facility, we actually care about our staff. And it's showing because our heartbeat is strong. In our facility, our patient experience is amazing. And it shows because our heartbeat is strong. In our facility, utilization is perfect. Even the leader or the owner is no longer wincing every time they see invoices from suppliers. That is the wall of care. It's only going to be for the 1% who actually stand out. It's Africa. It's, you know, we tend to lean more on survival. So most people will feel like, no, we are not there yet. And it's okay. This is for those people who are committed to leaving a legacy. When I worked there, when I was the leader there, when I was the nursing service manager there, I actually made sure that the experience for nurses got better by ABCD. When I was the quality manager there, I went beyond compliance. I also looked at humanity in healthcare. When I was the owner of the facility, those are the people who we are looking for to be on this wall of care. It's not for everybody, yeah? So I want to know in the chat box whether you'd ever consider being in the wall of care, and that this wall of care is going to be digital. We are going to actually go live in January, where we will be posting the facilities that are working on humanizing healthcare, and we will have a digital map with the heartbeats, and we will be putting it out there for our patients, everybody to see and say, these are the facilities that really care about humanizing healthcare, and they are doing the work. Your first step to actually say, how close or how far am I from this wall of care, is to take a care excellence pulse check. We call it a pulse check because it's a heartbeat. You're checking whether you are asystole, whether you are resuscitatable. Is that even English? Okay. You know, whether we can resuscitate you, whether you have a steady heartbeat, or whether you have a strong heartbeat. So I would love for you to take this care excellence pulse check. It's the end of the year, and just say, what is our pulse today in terms of care, in terms of the three things Irene spoke about. We have standards of care, our culture of care, and our experience of care. Where are we? How far are we from this wall of care anyway, so that we can start there? So when you do reach out to us for this care excellence pulse check, you will get a scorecard, of course, and then we will be able to map out a growth blueprint for you. So the excellence, the pulse check in itself is free. That one you will take it for free. But anyone who wants us to weigh in into their growth path for the next 90 days after this pulse check, there's a cost to that. So I would really love to know who would want to get into that. So the one who then invests in the growth blueprint, that person is investing in clarity, because we will now look at, after you do the assessment, we would be able to let you know where your systems are strong in terms of care, where your systems are weak, and go down to the specifics of, this is the exact SOP you need, this is the training you need, here are some resources in terms of the training. So it's a very resourceful blueprint that we offer. When we offer it to you, you're guaranteed to have more hours and time for you to actually focus on the strategy for 2026. So you buy back your time by fixing all these system issues, so you can focus on scaling and growing and doing the other things. This clarity will help you to build the culture and then be able to finally rein in staff turnover so that you can reduce it. And this blueprint will help you to make your care consistent and increase your patient loyalty. As I close, the one thing I would love for you to do, even if you don't take that growth blueprint, that you're able to look at the assessment and just be able to say, if I wanted to be the 1% on that wall of care that's going up in January, if I took this care excellence pulse check, where would I be? Would I be on that wall? And if I was there, what color would it be? Red is asystole. Red is, there's a lot of systems you need in place. Yellow is you have some systems and all that. Then you have light green. And finally, you have this. When you see this green, it means you're part of the world now. You're humanity in itself. So you have a very strong heartbeat. And yours will just be, shining in its own way. So as I close, I would love to motivate you and say, leave something behind in your facility. Leave the feeling of, we were working here, but we also lived here and we had an experience here. As a leader, fix one thing, just one thing about the experience of your staff. That one thing you fix will automatically fix the patient experience. Thank you very much for joining this session. I will now take some questions or comments. Then we can be able to call it a day. So I am going to the chat box just to see if there are any questions or comments. Oh, Lydia from Uganda. Hi, Lydia. It's very nice to see you here. If a patient appreciates the service and is happy, then they are better. Yes, Lydia, that is true. It does make someone feel good if, they are taken care of very well.
Hi, Irene.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you so much for joining. I see you made your comments here. What's that one thing you're picking from all this that, you didn't know and now you're taking it with you and saying, this is the one thing I really want to look at?
Yes. One thing I've picked is that with quality, you do not have to journey alone. Actually, it's a wave. You all have to move together. Collect those who are also remaining behind and make sure they are working with a team together. And sincerely, you've said, if you get particular people to do things, the day they will not be there, it will be very draining. Mm-hmm. And in the same instance, you are actually draining those same people because they're the ones doing the same things always. We should be always able, as the entire team, to do actually the same things. Everyone should know what we are doing. That's how we will be able to move together as a team and actually not get drained. That even if Lydia is not there, Irene will do. So like it's that comfortable, you get. But the moment it's one particular person doing something, the day they will not be there, you'll get back to zero. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think it's okay for if when they're not there, they have gone for a day or on leave. Imagine that person finally leaves your facility and they've been the ones managing that one thing. It becomes a crisis. Might I add, if you're a leader here, we cannot have everybody doing your leadership role, but you do have the responsibility to think about a succession plan and the person who you are slowly mentoring to take your role when you finally leave or something else happens. The information you have, the knowledge you have, the only way you become an expert in it is if you actually share it with somebody else. So if you're a leader here and you don't have someone you're mentoring to wear your shoes, please move this other way because we are now speaking about acts of compassion. Anyone else with something they would like to say before we wind up? To take the Care Excellence Pulse check, kindly send me, most of us here registered, so you have my email. Reach out to me via email, but I'm also putting my WhatsApp number in the chat box. so that you can chat me up and I can share the link for you to take the pulse check just to see where you are. I know it's a bit intimidating, especially if you've not done it before and you already kind of have an idea of how your facility is. But here is something I'd love for you to think about. When you finally have a number, when you put a number to it, then it's easy for you to make an improvement. When you can't even quantify it, it's actually even more crazy. You're literally moving around in the dark. So this audit will help you to finally put a pulse on whatever your care delivery system is and where you need to improve. So kindly feel free to reach out. I've put my WhatsApp number there. Feel free to WhatsApp or email me and I will share the link with you. Then you'll be able to take what do you call it? You'll be able to take the assessment and then get your feedback. And then those who are now interested in, okay, now that we have the feedback, we really need help to strategize and design or redesign our care delivery system, then we can have a conversation about that. Any comments as we leave? Caroline, I saw you here. I said I must at least say, Caroline, please say something.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine, fine. That was such a timely conversation. I'm happy I joined. For a minute
Okay.
there, almost at 8. So thank
Mhm.
you for the stuff. I'm very happy I joined the conversation.
Okay.
And so thank you for doing this. It's very helpful for most of us.
Is there anything you have picked from here that stood out for you?
So for me, I think what stood out, or rather, what actually, I love how you've insisted and emphasized that we may have SOPs, we may have policies, but if they are not being implemented, if they are not being used, then definitely we are not working. So yeah, for me, I felt that because majority of our facilities we have. Very well documented SOPs and policies, but when it comes to actually getting them out of and putting them in use, that's where the challenge is. So for me, that was a good reminder.
Okay, great. Yeah, please let the SOPs come alive. Let's stop having them in folders and all that. Let's make them come alive. Any other comment? Anyone else with a comment they would like to say before we wind up? 1 more minute, then we wrap it up. Any comments or question? Okay.